Hey everyone, can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up? All right, cool. I feel like we should have just kept on re-listening and vibing to the music because. All right, we got everybody? Sarah, we're good?
Good to go.
All right, cool. So hello everyone, thanks to Sarah for the rockin' music because that definitely got me pumped up and I hope it got everybody else pumped up. And this is my first roundtable and I'm super new to WrenchWay, so welcome to everybody. And this is women in wrenching and why we need to attract more women into the industry, but even more than just women, just be more inclusive in the industry, right? So I'm just gonna kind of kick it right off and again, bear with me, but I'm really pumped. And so our first panelist, we have Carolyn Coquillette, and she is the founder and CEO of Shop-Ware. And we also have Audra Fordin, owner of Great Bear Auto Repair, and also founder of Women Ought to Know. Then we also have Cheryl Thompson, who is the founder and CEO of Center for Automotive Diversity, Inclusion, and Advancement, CADIA. And then, of course, we have Brittany Parker, who is a master Subaru technician at Maple Hill Auto Group. So we have a fabulous panel tonight. We have lots to discuss. And because it is a roundtable, everybody just jump in, right? So don't be muted. I want everybody to feel super comfortable. I don't pretend to know it all, so definitely school me. And if we're ready, let's just get rolling. All good?
Good.
All right, great. So I think we're going to start off with why we're here. I think that's kind of a duh question, but let's just quickly, at this point, we know that being diverse, being inclusive, including women is important in all industries, but also because our industry is probably a little bit more behind than some of the others. And there's some room for growth, and that's all good. We'll focus on that too. But, also I was watching the news today and there's always studies, but I was upstairs getting ready and all of a sudden I heard downstairs, and don't judge me for watching MSNBC, but I was watching MSNBC and they had another study about why being diverse and inclusive is actually good for your business. So not only is it good for your customer service and your frontward facing people and employees, but it also is good for your bottom line. So I thought that I would share that with you all today. I was like, oh, there we go. That means something, right? Heard it today. And so I hate the word housekeeping because I think that is just not what we should be using as women. But anyway, just for a little direction for us all is if you have questions for today's panelists, if you could just put those in the Q&A. And then we'll try and get to as many of them as we can. And if we don't get to them, hopefully we can address them at a later date, probably tomorrow. So the Q&A is where it's at, and we're gonna try and address all the questions. And I see people popping up right now, so I'm gonna try not to be distracted. Sarah told me to move it over to the other screen, but I haven't yet to be able to do that. So bear with me a little bit. So then I think what we really should start off with is our panelist introductions. So Carolyn, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself. All of you have very unique backgrounds, but Carolyn, if you could share your background, how you got into the business, and then fun little idea that I stole from my good mentor, George Ahrens, is tell us what your first car was. So take it away.
Absolutely. Christen, thank you so much for having me. And it's a pleasure to be here. And thanks to Find a Wrench and WrenchWay for putting this on. This is such an important conversation. It's been going on for a long time, but it's always good to circle back and sort of check in on how we're all thinking and feeling and what we're all trying to do to improve our industry in so many ways. So this is really welcome conversation. Thank you. Let's see, so I got into the business through the service bay, started wrenching in Ann Arbor, Michigan after I had a problem with my car and was disappointed that I just spent 4 years in college and had no idea how to fix it. So started going to community college and fell in love with the business, moved out to San Francisco to work on hybrid cars, and then ultimately opened my own repair shop specializing in hybrid cars, which is the one I'm standing in today. Still own that business, and also am the CEO and founder of Shop-Ware, a shop management company that is offering solutions to allow shops to evolve and embrace the 21st century in other ways besides their human resources. So lots of different perspectives in the business. Super excited to be here with other members of this panel that have equal insight into different aspects of this industry. So again, really excited about this conversation. My first car was a Dodge Neon, and I was managed to scrape up the money doing some, chores and whatnot as a high school student to buy that car. I got a little help from my parents because I was able to convince them that it was a good idea for me to have airbags, and that was like the cheapest car you could buy that had airbags. And I got the base model. It was a manual transmission. I didn't know how to drive a manual transmission, but I thought buying a car with a manual transmission would be a real good way to learn. So I was having an anxiety attack for about 2 weeks until I figured that out. I drove the living piss out of that car. Again, this is before I knew anything about fixing them. So I think I changed the oil once in its 80,000 miles that I owned it. Whenever I came home from college for Christmas break, my mom would steal it from me and take it to the dealership and get a brake job or whatever. And so anyway, I was not very good at that car. And I guess now I'm paying it back to all cars to give them a little better service than I gave that car. But anyway, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing about your car. And I think actually, I'm not even going to try and guess your age because airbags, I'm not even sure they had seatbelts when I had my first car, but we're going to move on. Audra, you're wearing your Woman Ought to Know sweatshirt. Love it. So tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah, representing definitely for this great conversation. Thanks for putting this together. And I am so happy to be here with everybody on this panel. And for everyone who is attending, I'm a pro men and women in automotive, but we are underrepresented. So I think that there's a great opportunity to talk about a lot of things that would help women to be inclusive in this conversation. I started in auto repair as a kid. I was working with my dad and my grandfather, and I fell in love with the industry. I started wrenching, I guess, when I was old enough to hold power tools. And then as I got older, I moved to all different positions inside of the shop. And just, I think it's one of those things that when you're in automotive, it's in your blood. And it just pumps me up, and I get fired up, especially when I'm doing workshops to educate women. So I'm the fourth generation and first female to take ownership of my family's auto repair shop in Flushing, New York. And
that's New York. Woohoo!
Yeah. In 2009, I had this awareness that I used to think customers who came into the shop were they were defensive, they were angry, they were antagonistic, and something transformed where I realized that these were actually just scared people who didn't understand about their car, and they needed some information and education in order to be confident to make smart decisions about how to do the maintenance and save their time and save their money. And with that, Women Ought to Know was born, where we're doing workshops to educate people about their car, kind of like making a basic introduction one-on-one for where they spend a lot of their time. Oh, and my first car was a 1976 Dodge Aspen. I got it in the summer because it was broke and I had to fix it if I wanted to drive it. It had no air condition. It was a maroon pleather interior with a really long bench seat. So when you made turns, you could slide from side to side.
Yeah, yeah.
And the seatbelt was across the lap. It wasn't even.
Yeah, there was no.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're giving Dodge some credit, right? Between
good first cars.
That's where it's at. Cheryl, thank you, Audra. Cheryl, would you mind sharing with us a little bit about your experience and, of course, your first car?
Yes. So a little bit of a different background than all of you, and thank you for having me. This is a topic very near and dear to my heart. So I got into automotive kind of by accident. When I was in high school, I wanted to do something with computers. It was the mid-'80s. Computers were just kind of coming into, existence. And I wanted to do something with computers. And I ended up getting pregnant when I was 17. So I had my son when I was 18. And I was waitressing, which was great money. Tip money is great way to support myself. And my dad was an engineer at Ford Motor Company. And he said, you know, you can get a job in food service. It was internal. They had not outsourced it at the time. And maybe Ford will pay for your benefits, for your school and all of that. So I did. I kind of got hired on the spot. They handed me an apron and said, can you start right now? So I did that for a couple of years. I got to waitress in the executive dining room, the penthouse, back when they still had all of those, all of the frills, right? None of that exists anymore. And they were trying to recruit women and minorities into skilled trades. So I was thinking, great, electrician, pipe fitter, I got it. I know what that is. Well, they wanted to put me in tool and die. And I had no idea what that was. I thought I was going to make tools and die them. So I quickly found out, you know, what it was. And at the time, I did not know what an Allen wrench was. I did know how to change a tire. My dad taught me how to change a tire because he never wanted me to be stranded on the side of the road. But went into the tool and die apprenticeship and really learned so much about how to fix things, how to make things. And oh my goodness, what a powerful feeling that is to be able to fix something, you know, and to work with all of those tools. So this was in the late 80s, early 90s. There was barely a women's locker room. I remember we had to walk a long way to even find a restroom. It was the facilities were basically all men. But I learned so much. It was a great foundation. And I had a superintendent who took me aside and said, you know, you can get into engineering. There's a lot of die makers that have used that foundational experience to go into engineering as a career. So he was a mentor or a sponsor back before I even realized what that was and helped me get into engineering. So let's see, how many years did I spend? 31 years at Ford. Retired leading the powertrain prototype group. So I had technicians working for me. I had about a team of 500. So technicians making engines, transmissions, axles, tearing them down, all of that. And just got very passionate about how do we make this industry more inclusive? How do we attract more diverse talent, more women to the industry? As you can imagine, I probably had one female technician out of 500. So just really, really saw the need for it. And that's why I started the organization CADIA. Also spent a year and a half at a tier 1 supplier, also prototype for axles. So that's the story behind how I got into it. And, you know, just thinking about how do we attract more women to the industry? It's awareness, it's exposure to opportunity. Like I was sharing, I didn't even know what an Allen wrench was. I didn't know this whole industry existed, and it's very lucrative. So I'm excited to dig into the conversation as we go through. And my first car was a 1977 red Thunderbird. So seatbelt across the lap, bench seats, right? I felt like a boat when I was driving that thing. So that's my story.
That's great. And thank you. And I think I'm going to need a bit of an education on tool and die. So
think about a car, like a fender, a door. So think about how that metal gets formed and gets, cut into a shape. That the dies go into the presses that stamp out that car part.
Okay.
So yep.
Everybody else probably knew that except for me. So thank you. And love your first car. I think everybody always remembers their first car. And hey, Brittany, you're wearing your Subaru, represent. I mean, we all love Subaru. So
Always.
Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit, I mean, how you got into the industry, how you got excited? Just want to know.
So out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I did a few different things. I was a CNA for a while. I worked retail for a while. And then I got to be about 20 and I was like, I kind of know what I don't want to do. So, you know, I used to fix bikes when I was young in my garage, and I grew up on a farm. I worked on tractors, you know, I hung out with my dad a lot. And so I was like, you know what? I think working on cars would be pretty fun. And plus I didn't want to have to pay for it. So, so I decided to go to school for it. And I guess I was breaking down doors without knowing it, because I showed up to class and, you know, I was the only woman, and I just stuck with it. And it was definitely intimidating at first, but I really got into it and I really liked it. So went to school for it. made it a personal goal for myself to be a master automotive technician. So I became ASE Master Certified after a while, graduated from Lansing Community College with my degree in automotive. I've worked at a couple independent shops, and then I found Maple Hill, and they sent me to school for Subaru, and I continued forward with that and got to go to Chicago to training all the time. And now I'm a master Subaru technician, and it's been fun working there. I really set personal goals for myself every single day, and being able to achieve them has just been fantastic. And I don't see myself doing anything else at this point. I'm so passionate about it. And I guess my first car was a 1993 Buick LeSabre, actually. So talk about a boat.
Very cool. Yeah. And that's what I love about this group is I think we all have such diverse backgrounds. My first car, just to add in, it was a 1984 Grand Marquis. It was white with red pleather, steering wheel and all, right? And so I think that's something we never forget, our first cars, right? And so anyway, so I'm going to cheat a little bit and I'm going to look at my agenda and questions, sorry. But I think our first question is, what is it like to work in the industry as a woman? In my experience, so I'm a car dealer's daughter and from upstate New York. That's why I said represent, Audra. And so for me, I would get off the school bus at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I'd walk down to my dad's dealership and stay there until 8 o'clock at night. I knew that blue seal, that ASE seal. I didn't really know what it meant, but it was everywhere in the back of the dealership, the front of the dealership. I'm not even sure my dad to this day knows who ASE is, but I was never asked to go into the industry, right? My brother was, my cousins who were male were asked to go into the industry. So that was my first experience with the automotive industry. And the ironic thing is that I'm the only family member who's still in the automotive industry. So anyway, with that being said, I think let's just jump right in and say, what has your experience been as a woman in the industry? And this is we're not going to male bash, but we've all had better experiences and then not so great experiences, right? So who wants to jump in first?
Well, I'll start. I think it's a very cool industry because there's always something to learn, right? Things are changing so fast. Technology is just advancing at a rapid pace. And so there's always something to learn. So I found it very exciting to be able to always learn. It's something new every day, new opportunities. Just think about the background I've had, being able to go from a tool and die maker to engineering and across different areas of engineering and work in different plants, work in different facilities, work in staff functions. So opportunity has been amazing. The ability to learn something new. Of course, I've encountered some bias here and there, sometimes conscious and very outward, and then sometimes subtle. But for the most part, everybody wants to help and wants to see more women, more people who are different enter the industry and to help them be successful.
Great, thank you.
I find the same kind of feedback, you know, where people are just willing to be helpful and willing to learn or willing to teach as well. You know, for me, whether it was a man or a woman, a boy or a girl, you know, when the students are coming in and working with interns also, as long as there's like that passion that somebody's really eager to learn, it wasn't really difficult for me.
Great. Yeah, and obviously both you and Cheryl have had some mentors, right? And so I do want to touch upon that. Brittany, you want to go ahead and share your experience as a woman in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, when I first went to school, everybody welcomed me and there was no opposition at all, really, for me. So that's been awesome. I mean, I feel like I really feel like it was like a personal limitation when I went in and I was nervous or, you know, had any reservations about anything, because, you know, when I went into the shops, everybody was so willing to help me. And, you know, these master techs that I was working underneath to begin with, I don't think they thought twice about me being a woman, but I was like, oh, what if they, you know, treat me differently? Or, you know, I had these things running through my mind. And honestly, maybe I've just been lucky, but I really haven't ran into anything thus far that has, you know, been unfair, I guess, you know, because I feel like I can do everything that they can do. So.
Heck yeah. Well, good. Yeah. And I know Jeff very well, and he's a great supporter of you. So that's great. Carolyn, do you have some?
He's a great boss.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. He's awesome. Carolyn, do you have something to add about, you know, well, you're a shop owner and now you have your Shop-Ware, you know, how has it been for you as a female in the industry?
So, you know, I echo the other panelists' experience as far as meeting really phenomenal people, men and women. I also am hesitant to apply kind of a Pollyannic lens over all things. And while I've been fortunate, and I think that some of that is luck, some of that is talent, some of that's just chutzpah and having a thick skin or whatever, not to dismiss other people's experiences. And for folks that are, whether you're nervous or you've had some headwind or whatever the case may be, or you're just having a hard time feeling like you belong, it's interesting that the sort of the evergreen that everyone's mentioned is the support that they've received from other people that they've met. And what's interesting about our business is that everyone in this business is self-taught to some amount, to some degree. And that's true whether you're running your shop or you're fixing cars or whatever the case may be. If you just look at some of the training material, like for example, this panel, we're from the industry, right? We're talking about our own experiences. We're improving our own industry. We're really working together on this. There's not a lot of outside insight that comes in and helps us do our job. Like this industry is basically creating itself. And so essentially your individual experience, finding those mentors and finding that work environment that is constructive for you and allows you to thrive, you can find that. You should find that. And if you're working with people that are insensitive or idiots, just find somewhere else to go. You know, and what's phenomenal for people who are entering this business, especially as technicians, is that you are in extraordinarily high demand. If you learn the skill, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to find a job, and you should be able to demand a really a good wage and ultimately build a career. So I think it's a great industry for anybody to get into, especially young folks. And for women, I think there's a ton of opportunity. I think, you know, my experience for every shop I was in, whether it was a little shop or a big shop, being a woman, being a minority in the industry has been an opportunity to stand out. Now that grants you more attention, right? People are paying more attention to what you're doing. And so if you screw up a car or whatever, then you might not be able to hide as much as somebody else who looks like everybody else. But that could also work to your advantage, right? Customers want to come to you because they trust you. They want to come to your shop. You're able to stand out, and that's great when you're trying to compete. So that can be actually a huge advantage.
I absolutely agree with that for sure, because I do have people who ask for me personally to work on their vehicles at our shop. So that's been awesome.
Yeah, so let's maybe, I'm going off script, ladies, but maybe we touch upon that a little bit more. Do you feel like when you're customer facing that you bring maybe a different element than, you know, if people are requesting you, then what is that, you know, you have a comfortability with them? Does that make sense?
Well, I feel like when you've worked on people's cars, you know their car is like an extension of them almost, you know, it's like their doctor, you know, they're familiar with their car and stuff like that. And I'm more than willing to go up and go on test drives with people, you know, talk to people about their lives and daily, you know, everything. So I kind of get like almost a friendship going with my customers, you know, also.
It's
So
a relationship, absolutely.
yeah, a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been, you know, they just ask for you because they know you, and you know.
Yeah. Audra, it looked like you were gonna jump in.
Yeah, I think that, well, I agree, having the relationship and forming that with the drivers is imperative, just like it is with a person. But at the moment, because women are so underrepresented, to be able to connect with a woman in the shop is tremendous. And it makes a big difference because you're kind of with like-minded people. You know, you can really relate to another woman. A woman feels more comfortable having a woman to talk to. And then I think that takes a lot out of the intimidation, and to help make somebody feel more comfortable, just to know that you are a woman in this, what's still perceived as a male-dominated field.
Absolutely. I think, you know, I just got into a little fender bender. My neighbor's son backed into me. And, you know, because I'm in the industry, I have a certain confidence. I kind of know what I'm talking about. But if I hadn't been in the industry, I maybe wouldn't feel as confident. So Carolyn, I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of women customers, and you must kind of relate to them or want to make them feel more at ease.
So the name of the shop is Luscious Garage, so we're hardly hiding from the fact
That's
that
an
it's women
awesome
owned.
name, by the way.
You know, if I could go back and rename it, I would. It's benefited us in the sense that it has garnered a lot of attention, which is kind of what I was mentioning earlier. But now that we've like spun up and we have the cars, and you know, we're no longer working on sort of building a name for ourselves. I wish that we hadn't picked such a sexualized name, because I think that it potentially undermines the technical legitimacy of what we're doing here. That being said, you know, there's an environmental twist to it. There's other pieces and parts. Anyway, it's too late now. We're stuck with it. You know, we're not going to do anything. But people ask me, okay, with a name like Luscious, you know, would a man even think of stepping foot in there? And the reality is that men don't know what's going on with their cars any more than women do. And so I think guys really appreciate being able to come into a shop and just say, you know what, you do it, please help me. I'm not going to pretend to be super macho. And so we found that very refreshing. And we used to have a night shift for taxi cabs. And let me tell you, if there's ever like some more like machismo than like, you know, immigrants from that are driving taxis in the middle of the night, like it's like those dudes are like very of their, like they have their place, they have their culture, and they were very excited to be able to kind of leave all that behind and get some help. And so we've been able to kind of transcend a lot of different biases and I think barriers, because people have just been able to sort of accept that we're here to help them, and there's no other preconceived notions.
Yeah, kind of like breaks down the barriers. It's almost like, you know, we're all just people at the end of the day, you know, and we all just want our cars to be safe and run properly. Cheryl, so let's talk about intimidation, because you maybe haven't worked in the shop like the other ladies, but you've definitely been in a male-dominated environment, and you know, intimidation must come into play a little bit for you.
Well, I worked in a factory, so, you know, hands-on wrenching as well, with thousands of men. I think I was one of 6 women with thousands of men. So it was very intimidating. I was lucky enough to have a woman who was 10 years older than me. She worked on the railroad, so very, very tough, had been around the industry for a while. And she taught me, she had just gone through Dale Carnegie training. And if anyone's been through Dale Carnegie, the thing that they teach you is to smile. So she taught me to smile. She said, if you, and that's the last thing I wanted to do. I just wanted to hide. I wanted to just like really be left alone and hide. And she taught me to be approachable, be open. And that is going to make people want to help you if you appear approachable. So that took the intimidation factor down. And I wanted to comment on what these ladies were talking about in terms of the business case. That gets talked about so much, like what is the business case? And you mentioned that you saw a news report that was talking about how companies are more profitable when there's more diversity, more inclusion. And think about the trust factor. Like I was listening to Brittany talk, I want to take my car to have Brittany work on it, right?
Yeah.
She's so passionate about it. I would trust her. So think about that trust factor, not only attracting customers, but the ability to retain customers. That's huge, right? So I just think that there's a huge case, business case, for having more women in the industry. And in the thinking about the intimidation of taking your car in to have it fixed, that would lower the intimidation level for me, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Jeff, I can arrange that.
I know.
I'll take you up on that, Jeff.
Do we
We're
see
on in
all the little
Michigan.
chats popping up? I can't keep up. So if you guys see something, hop on it, because I'm having a hard time.
Oh, these are. I'm loving reading the chat. This is great.
I know, we could just do this for days, right? So let's talk about two things I want to talk about, is because I am a huge fanatic about mentoring. So I'd like to know who, if you have mentors currently. I'm really a huge fan of having multiple mentors in all different aspects of your life. So let's talk about if you have had mentors, have mentors, if you're mentoring, because I just think that that's really important, not only for women, but for everybody. Anybody want to jump in?
Well, I've had a ton of mentors. I've had mentors before I even knew what a mentor was. You know, it was the one that got me into engineering. Also, for a while, I thought I had to have a female mentor. And I have since realized that it's good to have all types of mentors. I'm thinking about, you know, we had a formalized mentor program when I was with Ford. Mm-hmm. And I was a mentor or a mentee for about 10 years of that. And it was a pre-matched program. And only 2 out of those 10 years did I end up with a mentor that it was a really good fit. So I'm a big fan of finding your own mentor, right. Reaching out to different people, seeing if there's chemistry, and then if there is, deepening, taking that relationship further. Mentors have been really helpful for me in terms of exposing me to new opportunities, to helping me kind of get over some blocks I had with confidence, and also, you know, helping me get promoted, helping with the politics a little bit, helping with what really matters to the bottom line, helping with working on things that are going to be high leverage versus the small things that sometimes women do that don't add to the bottom line, don't get you noticed. So great mentors, and I do a lot of mentoring now to give back. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, stop apologizing for stuff, right? Like, just we sometimes are our own worst enemy. How about you, Audra? Well, coming from having a family in the business, obviously you have familial mentors, but do you have a mentor currently? Are you mentoring?
I am mentoring, and I find that I'm doing it all the time for new people when they're coming in, especially for young women. I have an intern program, so we do a circuit for interns, and there's always opportunities to be mentoring. And I'm still doing outreach, and I have great relationships with the people who are mentoring, and it's very rewarding to watch them go and fly and feel confident, whether they go into automotive or into a different trade. I think that that's something that's a spectacular way to give back. And, you know, I can't say it enough, whether it's a man or a woman. Right now, we are in we need applicants. We need more people in the trade. I feel like it's a dying breed. I'm always looking for help. Me and everybody who I know in my neck of the woods is like desperate to find good help. And if we don't train, if I'm not training within and I'm not mentoring, it's a struggle. And the people that I have on my team now, or at least some of the people that are on my team now, are because they came in and, you know, they just stuck around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, they stick around because you're a good mentor, right? Like, that's the whole retention piece, and that's why it's so important. How about you, Brittany? Have you had, well, I'm sure you've had great mentors. Could you share with us?
I guess I wouldn't say I had like one in particular. I kind of threw myself into the mix and kind of learned on my own and did my own research and kind of faked it till I made it, I guess. But you know, at this point in my career, I think it would be cool to have an apprentice. I just haven't been presented with an opportunity like that. You know, sometimes I have lube techs come over and work with me. And obviously, as a shop, we kind of all try to work together on things, especially if we have things that, you know, some people are better at heavy lines, some people are better at you know, electrical diagnostics. You know, some people are specialized in hybrid, you know, things like that. So we all work together, but, you know, I think it'd be cool to have an apprentice. The only bad thing is we work flat rate, so we try to work very fast all the time, and it has to do with our pay. So having an apprentice, you know, somebody who's really green out of college or something like that, would definitely slow me down. So that's the only like negative that I could think about having an apprentice, for sure, in a shop like mine, at least.
Yeah, yeah. And so I want to continue on the mentoring piece, but then, you know, and maybe we go back to the apprenticeship piece, because I do really feel like, and I see Carolyn, you kind of looking like it's an important thing. And I think it's so important to attracting and retaining technicians, or anybody really in any industry. So Carolyn, if you want to touch upon mentoring, and then maybe if we think it's worthy, we can go back to apprenticeships, and maybe that's a way of not only attracting women, but keeping women in the industry as well.
Mm. I really enjoyed Cheryl's comments about all the different aspects of the business or the industry, really, you know, and like all the different mentoring you've received over the years from, you know, different skills that you've wanted to cultivate. And it's interesting, like, depending on how you get into automotive, you typically have a view of like your world. And then the longer that you're in the business, you start to realize there's this whole universe of activity that's going on. And really there is an unlimited amount of stuff to learn and do and pursue. So sort of the opportunities to learn, and then obviously, you know, pay it forward to somebody else who's trying to learn, kind of never ends. For me personally, I had a gentleman who was an instructor at the community college. I think that inspiration and mentoring definitely starts at the early training, and community colleges do an amazing job for our industry. We need to continue to support them. Anyway, I had a gentleman who was a shop owner and a technician, but also was working in the evening doing introductory level classes. And he was this very intelligent, very articulate person, and I really gravitated towards him. I ended up going to work for him. And I was like, if this guy is a mechanic, I want to be a mechanic, and worked with him for a while, and ultimately, you know, went and worked at other repair shops. Fast forwarding, I mean, like I worked for a women's shop owner in Petaluma, and she really helped me learn how to run the business. And she provided an interesting counterpoint in terms of like, this is sort of the common thinking about how you should run a repair shop, but you don't have to do it that way. There are other ways that it can be profitable. You don't necessarily have to subscribe to the common way of thinking that you're really in kind of an adversarial relationship with your customer. So that was really eye-opening, and certainly seminal in terms of some of the decisions that we made to build this business. And then currently in the software company, I'm blessed to have Kathy George on our executive team. I met her through Women in Auto Care, which is a women's group, which I would recommend to anyone who's interested in connecting with women across the aftermarket. And she is a former senior vice president of Delphi and very seasoned executive. And so she's taught me a lot about, you know, upping my game in that department. So in terms of like, who am I mentoring these days? I need to do more of that, honestly. So it's fun to be in a panel like this and reconnect with what other people are doing. So thanks guys for inspiring me to continue doing that.
Yeah, I mean, we all have had different mentors in different parts of our lives, and then we continue to be mentored, but then it's so important to be mentoring back, right? And to be giving back. So I heard Audra and I heard Brittany talk about the apprenticeship stuff. So I do think that that is a huge piece to attracting women, right? And keeping them in the industry too, or anybody for that matter. So does somebody want to jump in about how we could maybe better engage women and then bring them in as apprentice, you know, and kind of nurture that whole learning process?
I don't know how the mentoring or the apprenticeship works on the technician side. I can talk about apprenticeships in my experience.
Yeah.
That's the reason I got into automotive, because there was an apprenticeship program that was very well structured. My schooling was paid for. In fact, I got paid to go to school. So my time in school, I would get a check for that. My school was paid for. I got a tool check. So I, was able to pay for my tools. Very well paid going through the 4-year program. I would have not gone into that field if there was not an apprenticeship. So it was a 4-year program and came out, ready to work in the field. Got an opportunity to work with all different types of journeymen, because they were all men at the time, and got to see different styles. And it was just so interesting to see when somebody was at the top of their game, had been doing things for a while, they were very slow and deliberate with their movements, and they didn't waste steps. They didn't waste time. And it was so different working with somebody who was new, that was running around making all this noise, and really they didn't get anywhere. So just really learning different styles of people. I guess I could look at them as mentors, when I look back over my career. So I don't know how it works on the technician side, but I'm a huge fan of apprenticeships. If there's a way to make it work, I think that would attract more women to the field, because it's providing opportunity that they may not be aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one of the things I always say is we expect, technicians, or Cheryl, we expect everybody to know how to do their job on day one. And is that like completely insane? Like completely insane.
Absolutely.
There's no way.
I mean, I've just been with WrenchWay for almost 3 months and I'm still figuring it out. So back to that apprenticeship, back to that learning environment. And obviously women need it, but everybody needs it. So Audra or Brittany, you want to talk about apprenticeships or why it's important, what you're doing, how we could do it better?
Well, I mean, so if a technician, especially a woman, wants to come into the industry, they want to feel comfortable, and they want to be able to learn, and they want to be able to feel comfortable asking questions, and they want somebody to be able to show them what they need to do or explain things to them. Like I said, I didn't really totally have that, because I didn't really have I guess I wouldn't say I had a mentor. I kind of did it all myself, and I made mistakes and I learned from those. But if I would have had an apprentice, I probably would have felt a lot more comfortable. And I feel like maybe some younger technicians coming into the industry, if they don't have somebody, to look up to watch, to learn from, to ask questions to, that they feel comfortable working with, they're just going to be let down, and they're not going to have any confidence, and they're not going to want to continue on with this path. And so I think that having apprentices is incredibly important to me, and I really wish we had more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
mean, learning a skilled trade is very difficult, and it takes years and years, and I learn something new every single day. So, it's good to have people on your side and somebody to learn from.
Yeah. And not get ridiculed if you don't know what to do, or how, you don't
want to feel ashamed. Yeah. You don't want to feel like you don't know what you're doing or out of place, or, God forbid somebody feels like that, because it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. And I know I take it very personally. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Audra? It sounds like you've taken some people under your wings and kind of really grown your own.
Yeah, for sure. But, to what Cheryl said, and I'm reading in the chat, it's definitely a great incentive to offer things to the person who's mentoring. And to what Brittany said, if this is going to slow her down and reduce the time, then to offer some other kind of incentive to offset that for the time, whether it be in a credit for your tools, or in some other time, or treating it as treating it as a promotion or giving some kind of consistency, incentivizing with your pay, that those are all really great ways to reward the person who's going to be a mentor and give the apprentice the tricks that took you, days and hours and weeks sometimes to master or learn.
Right. No, completely. Because if they wanted to teach, they would have been an instructor, right? They don't necessarily want to teach. They want to be able to earn a living and not necessarily be slowed down. So, exactly.
Yeah, but don't forget where you come from.
Well, true, but the incentive helps, right? Kind of motivate that
Reward,
that technician, that reward, to want to be a mentor and to want to take an apprentice. And
right.
We can't just assume that everybody wants to instruct or teach somebody who's just learning.
And that can be very frustrating.
Right. So tell me about that. What can be very frustrating?
I think that working with the right person makes a big difference. So if you have a person who's really interested, who's really giving it their all, who's got that passion and that desire to want to learn to make it, that is a reward to me to be the teacher. Mm-hmm. But if it's a person who's there like they're doing me a favor, I assure you, you're not doing me any favors, and I don't want to be that person that you're going to talk to. Don't waste my time.
Right. And your apprentice is going to feel that, right? And so
real quick,
everybody feels it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add to apprenticeships or mentoring? And
it's interesting. When I was working at the gas station, the world was 2 bays large, and if you're working at a larger organization or you're still in school, you have more people to connect with and potentially tap into. But when you're in a smaller environment or you're by yourself, you can feel very isolated just, by nature of where you're working. And there are a ton of online resources now that you can connect with, sort of to get that mentorship by proxy. So certainly IETN's been that place historically. Scott Brown he's created Diagnostic Network, diag.net, which you can use to connect with other amazing professionals. So for folks that are looking for mentors that may not have them in their immediate vicinity, there are other places you can go to meet other folks that really want to meet you and care a lot. The people who are on those forums because they want to connect with other people and want to share their knowledge. So that's been an area where I've learned a ton. I used to go home after work and read TechMail and read people's discussions of how they fix cars. And that was one of the ways that I learned how to fix cars, which is pretty cool. I'm super grateful for all those people that I met, really amazing community. I think generally speaking, the people who are at least in automotive today or have had historically been in automotive, especially as technicians, were historically kind of predisposed because they weren't told they were very good students. And so automotive was always kind of you either went to the military or you became a mechanic. And that's certainly not the type of environment that we have today. I mean, we work on extremely complicated technology, probably the most complicated technology that people ever touch in their daily lives. And so, we're performing miracles on pretty much every car. And yet the people that are culturally associated with automotive are not, again, considered very smart and are not necessarily granted a lot of appreciation kind of in the general public or what have you. And different industry groups have tried to fix that. But I think as we think about the folks that we're trying to encourage, whether they're young or just the people that you work with, not only smiling and being approachable, but also giving them that positivity that they are smart, that they can learn, that they should try to continue to pursue training, because the job is just hard, right? And so everybody needs encouragement. So that encouragement goes a really long way. And I think that when you look at some of the intermediate and advanced level training, it gets very intimidating. And so feeling like you can wade in the shallow end and continue your education as you go from, intern to, junior to journey to master level, et cetera. Just keep going, keep pushing, and stay hungry. So those were kind of my thoughts listening to everybody's comments.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm just getting like, you're literally in your shop right now.
Mm-hmm.
I see people walking back and forth. That's so cool. Thank you.
I keep getting colder. I'm just getting bigger. I'm putting on more and more layers here. So,
well, that's very cool. Thank you. So you brought up a good point. You brought up young people. So let's talk about how we attract, and I know this is about women, but I truly think to be more inclusive, we really need to include all people. And I think you all know I'm very passionate about schools and automotive transportation programs, diesel, collision, auto service, what have you. So how, and I could quote a bunch of statistics that they're going to make their decisions, their life, career path decision in middle school. And I do truly believe that they really are influenced in middle school. So how do we get young people, and if we want to be more specific to women, fine, but how do we encourage them at a younger age to embrace the automotive industry?
Do you remember that show, How It's Built?
Mm.
It's just making it more, oh my gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Not approachable, relatable, but accessible. Mm-hmm. Like knowing that that's an option. I think that's one way. And with social media now, there are so many ways to post pictures and short little videos so that it's less intimidating. But I also think it's educating parents. There's so many parents that will want their kid to go through a 4-year college degree because they think automotive or they think manufacturing is dangerous, dark, dingy, and they just don't understand that it can be a very good career path and it can be very lucrative. So that's one thing. I also think that letting people know that there's an opportunity for training. You don't have to know everything on day one, that you're going to be supported and coached and trained along the way. And then the last thing I'm thinking of is career path, letting them know that there's opportunities beyond being a technician. It can lead to so many different things. Mm-hmm. And so hearing the stories of, everyone that's on the panel is one way, just being more visible with what the opportunities are.
Yeah, absolutely. And start young. So, and that's, and encouraging it and providing those opportunities. Have you all, the other ladies, would you be able to offer some advice or have you seen it done really well within the school systems, within middle schools or high schools?
Not in my schools. I mean, the only we didn't have shop class or anything like that. I was kind of a nerd. I was in Science Olympiad, so I got to build cool things there. But I think the only thing we really had was art, and everything was academic. So I didn't really have a chance to build anything or create anything other than in art class, obviously. So I really wish I had more of that in school. I mean, obviously you can't go out and, get crazy on working on cars when you're in middle school. Well, you can in high school, but, something would be nice. So anything.
Yeah. How about you, Audra? Have you seen anything at the middle school or high school level that's really impressive, that's engaging younger people to get into the industry?
I have. I go to career days at the elementary school.
Love it.
And at that age, just introducing my career, what I'm doing, how I feel about it, what kind of things we need to do, if you like working with your hands, if you like math or art or science, and how all of that is all encompassed into automotive, that we have all of these opportunities. That's at the younger age. And then when, I guess I do workshops with scouts.
Nice.
So the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts. And I go back into the schools with the workshop for the high school students, the ones who are pre-driving age. And then we kind of talk about, at that time, it's not so much career, but it's really more about if you're interested in automotive or if you're just going to be a driver, then there are certain things that you need to know in order to be safe. But in my heart of hearts, I really believe that just having drivers be educated, then when you do need to jumpstart your battery and you open up your own hood, your child is going to watch you do that. And you will personally have the satisfaction that I was able to open my hood and get my car going and I feel great. And when I think the child in the back seat sees that, feels like, wow, I can do that too. And you're starting at a really young age, having them be open to those kinds of opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta tell you, I felt pretty badass when I can jump a car in front of my son, and it's like, I kind of didn't even know what the hell I was doing, but I was like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna figure this out. So, but that's kind of what you do too, Audra, is that, you're bringing it at a very, not only elementary school level, but just breaking it down to something as simple as jump starting your car, checking we've had conversations in the office about tire pressure and putting air in your tires, you know what I mean? Like all of that kind of stuff is just the gateway, not gateway drug, but the gateway into figuring out how to do stuff on your own and then building confidence, right?
Yeah, and to being a safe person on the road and to saving your life potentially when you're talking about tires. Blowouts are dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not somebody else's problem. It's your real concern, mm-hmm. as a good person in the society.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Brittany? So you said that you haven't really seen too much at the younger age then, and you kind of wish that you had.
I was just speaking from my own personal experience. I kind of grew up in a small town, so maybe it was just because of that. But yeah, at least when I went to school, I would have liked to have been involved in more mechanically minded things. You know what I mean? It probably would have opened my eyes to things that I enjoy earlier, and I wouldn't have had to kind of figure out what I didn't want to do earlier. But
yeah. And Carolyn, have you seen it done well? You're in California, so, and especially with you working on, Priuses and stuff, like those are super cool things. Is that something that you see being taught at a younger level or a younger age? And
I love Janice's comment in the chat about how in Northern California, all you hear about is STEM and coding, which is definitely San Francisco vibe.
I think that's all over the US now, right? Like, yeah. You're just over STEMified.
We have this intersection though between contemporary cars and all of that. And what's so exciting working on cars is you get to work on the entire car, not just one tiny bit of code that happens to control this one module. So that was always my attraction to the car, was it's applied physics. You get to see all these different types of systems, and you never get bored. And this is captured in shop classes Soulcraft, this idea that we've kind of lost touch with real things and real skill and craftsmanship and the satisfaction of working with your hands instead of just staring at a screen all day and doing virtual things and having these sort of synthetic experiences that are all through the screen. And so I think there's a great opportunity to attract people into our business. Now we need to make obviously the work environment more attractive. We need to make it obviously more diverse, is the purpose of this discussion today. And then we need to pay people more, which is to say that we need to be charging customers more. So all of these things about how we're kind of like, the rising tide raises all boats. We're raising the tide right now. And I think there's a really great outcome for us on the other side, especially as people start to realize like, oh, geez, this car I'm driving is extremely complicated. And if you think that an electric car that is self-driven is going to be less complicated than an internally combusted one, you're absolutely wrong. So there's lots of money to be made, lots of work to be performed in the business. We're just going to have to find those people who want to do it.
Yeah. So I'm going to look at my questions.
There's a ton of discussion in the chat about
I know, so everybody just jump in, because I feel like I'm trying to keep up with the chat. So if you all see something that you want to discuss, I saw something about pay real quickly, and Carolyn, you just touched upon it. We need to pay more with the McDonald's.
So I saw that one about the local community college auto instructor. I think that's a really good one. And the open houses and busing students for tours, that's huge. There's so many different workforce development organizations out there. And I just think it's connecting people to opportunity, and things like bus a group of students to see what is it really like, you know, and let them play with some things. I'm just thinking of when I ran the prototype shop, we would have open house and we would have little demo stations for the students to come in and to be able to manufacture a gear, to be able to run a 3D printing machine and make something, like just, you know, setting up activities so that students get to do some hands-on and see the cool things that you get to work on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd be surprised how many students actually have never seen an actual shop. You know,
Right,
they've
right.
seen their class shop, but never a real and true shop. And so somebody had posted on my LinkedIn, you know, bring them in on a Saturday. We understand that, you know, the school day is filled, they're learning all day, but invite them in on a Saturday, buy some pizzas, show and help the instructor out, quite frankly, too, you know? So there's lots of innovative ways that our industry can engage younger people. And we just need to do it. So back to the chat. Was there anything else? I saw pay. Do we think that's going to change anytime soon? Do we think industry is going to miraculously start paying more?
We need to change people's perception.
Okay.
In order to make that transformation and transition. You know, people think differently than what is actually going on, where the technology is light years from where people think it is. And they don't understand their car. They don't see the value in what we're doing. Oftentimes they're looking for a better discount, a better rate. And the entire circle, the ecosystem of it needs to change. And I think that it's happening now. People are understanding that their cars are different, but they still don't understand how to open their hood or what they need or why they need it. So there is a huge disconnect from that perspective.
I get a lot of customers that don't want to have to pay diagnostic fees, and that's a huge portion of fixing your vehicle. It's like, well, if you could figure it out yourself, then you would.
Right. And I think, you know, to your point, Brittany, Carolyn, I think I saw on when you were with Jay, it's like, I'm the fixer. I didn't create this problem, right? I think that's kind of what you said. And it's like, I'm trying to help you, right? And so don't view me as kind of the barrier. I'm really here trying to help safely fix your car.
The car is deliberately hiding its complication from the owner so that you agree to buy it. If we knew how complicated the cars were when they were sitting on the showroom floor, we would never agree to purchase it. And so there's this lullaby that is sung to prospective buyers that this new technology is a good idea. And of course, automakers have to put that technology on their cars. They wouldn't do it, you know, because it adds expense. They do it because they have to for emissions control. And they have to do it to keep the car from crashing into other cars and killing people. So we continue this march of technology on the car in order to reduce the car's ills on society. And in order for this whole ecosystem to continue, we have to basically, you know, continue to like polish up and hide the fact that all this is going on. And if you look at, you know, contemporary cars, they really don't make sounds. They don't really make smells anymore. You look at the Tesla, it's just one big rolling screen in the middle of the dash. And, you know, this is sort of the new way of driving. It's this very digital experience. The car is on or off. And you combine that with the fact that service stations have gone from having technicians in them to having chips and soda pop in them. It's like the car has completely disappeared from a technological standpoint. Certainly the de-emphasis and the de-investment on the trades in public schools has been hugely damaging in terms of people being able to appreciate reality and how things get done. So it's kind of a perfect storm. I think that the task of the aftermarket, because we didn't make the car, is to pull back that curtain and show people what they purchased and why we're here to help. And certainly not something that we're trying to do at Shop-Ware. So I think that we're on the path to help bring the consumer kind of back into the fold and say, hey, you know, there are aspects of the technology that are really beneficial, but obviously we have to keep them up in order for them to continue to keep you going down the road safely. So anyway, it's not our fault, but we're left to contend with it. The good news is that's our opportunity, right? That's our business, is to solve all that complication.
Yeah, absolutely. The rising costs, and then you're not seeing it at the technician level, right? And so another thing that comes to mind is, what if the industry was a bit more flexible? So does that attract more women, right? In terms of, Carolyn, I know, and I'm not sure if you're currently doing it, but your shop is kind of running on like a 24-hour.
It hasn't been for a while.
Okay.
I'm not sure anyone wants to work overnight, but,
Right.
but if there's money in it and, you know, whatever, there's ways of incentivizing. But it's interesting. There's been a lot of discussion recently with COVID around remote work for advisors and trying to find different kinds of skilled talent that way. It'll be a while, I think, before we have remote technicians, but what other flexibility do you have in mind?
I was just thinking maybe not as long of hours, or maybe 4-day work weeks. You know, would that attract more women into the industry? I don't know. I'm kind of opening it up to the group.
Not as a flat rate technician.
True.
Flat rate is like a huge issue in this industry, I think, and warranty times.
Yeah.
I mean, huge.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a whole other roundtable, probably.
Yeah,
right?
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Jet's in the chat. I'm not gonna try and approach you. Okay.
How about Audra? I mean, if Audra and Cheryl, like, what do you think? If we were a bit more flexible with our hours, would that attract more women?
I find myself to be very creative and very, very flexible in many situations. I take into consideration family life and personal life and school life and everything else that you possibly can consider, because I want my team to be happy. I want them to know that they can have a life and they can still have a career and a job that cares about them as a person and wants them to contribute. So I think flexibility is huge. I don't think that that's lacking. I think that, at least not from my perspective, I think that it's really about communicating what your needs are and then having the right boss or the right company to respect that and then accommodate to what you need. You know, I can't work on Tuesdays, or I could work on Saturday, or I can only work 6 to 12. Or if that doesn't work with my hours, then it's just not the right job or fit for you.
Right. Yeah. And Cheryl, how about coming from an OEM perspective and all of that? I mean, how does that all come into play?
I think flexibility is a good retention tool.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the industry in general has been unwilling or unable to consider flexibility and remote work, but COVID has certainly put that, you know, turned that all upside down. And I think we need to think about what lessons have we learned from this and what can we take forward? Before COVID even happened, I used to talk a lot about nurses. And when you think about the medical field, they're dealing with human lives. They're not dealing with cars, transmissions, engines, axles, or anything like that. And nurses have found a way to make things more flexible, right? They work sometimes the 3-day, 12-hour shifts, and then they've got the rest of the week off. Doctors are doing it as well. So if they're able to do it, dealing with human lives, we should be able to do it as well. And now that I am seeing companies that would have never considered this, find ways to be more flexible just out of necessity, I think we're going to see a lot of change. So I'm not sure about attraction, but I think it's certainly going to help with retention.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw a couple things in the chat. Ladies' locker rooms. I've never worked at a shop that has had a dedicated women's locker room. And also maternity leave. If I were to have a child, I can't work on cars.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna have to
yeah.
Or I'm gonna have to have an apprentice. You know. So those are two big things for me, also.
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. If you and then you're working on flat rate, so then there you go. Yeah, those are things that the industry should be talking about.
Absolutely.
For sure. Thank you for bringing that up, Brittany. I appreciate that. So we are looking at about 20 minutes to go, and we're not about to end yet, but I like to always add or ask this question, because I think so often we focus on things that need to be changed in the industry or what's wrong with the industry. But I would like to ask each of you what you think is really awesome about the industry. And then we're going to go into Q&A. Does that work for everyone? So who wants to jump in? What's really fabulous about this industry?
It's always changing. It's never the same. And the people are fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why you're 4th generation, right, Audra? Yeah, thank you.
I would say opportunity. You know, myself going from food service to being a tool and die maker to being an engineer building cars, then going to the powertrain side and learning how to build transmissions, engines, axles, learning how to manufacture gears, learning about 3D printing. You know, there's just always something to learn. It's so exciting. So I would say opportunity, and look how fast technology is changing and all that we've got in front of us right now. Moving from internal combustion engines to more battery and hybrid, always something to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would echo that. I don't want to go last, Brittany. I'm going to leave it for you. I would say opportunity. There's just so much to look forward to, both in terms of, you know, perpetual learning and challenge, but also money to be made. I mean, I think there's, we've seen the trends where there's been more and more cars on the road driving more and more miles every year. And the fact that it's getting harder is really just an opportunity for the professionals to step up and solve the problem. So I think it's a great industry. There's obviously a lot of very meaningful service that we perform that no one else can do. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a place to really lay down some roots and build a career, this is a great place to do it.
I mean, I love my job and I love going there every day. I look forward to it. I have a ton of fun. I've made some awesome friends. You know, the personalization is awesome. You can have whatever tools you want. You can do whatever you want with your toolbox. You get to buy a bunch of cars and fix them up however you want. And you can make a lot of money. So I love it.
Nice. I feel like we need to get this group together and like go to every middle school and just represent and show them all the awesome things, and, you know, and just really bring that positive spin to the younger generations and get them excited. And, you know, the people in this industry are awesome, right? Like, all you need to do is call somebody up, post something on LinkedIn, and everybody is ready to just run in and help. So I think that's pretty awesome. Before we go to Q&A, does anybody have any last comments or thoughts that they want to share? I see this chat like blowing up, so jump in if there's something you want to share, and then I have the Q&A over here. No?
Well, I'm just seeing that the YouTube videos, I think that's great. I just think more visibility about what the opportunities are. I think reaching into some of the underrepresented communities or underestimated communities, underserved, however you want to say it. There's just not knowledge that these opportunities are out there. So exposure and again, partnering with the workforce development organizations that are doing great work. It's connecting the dots.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let me take a look at this, the questions we have here, and also I missed a lot of the chat. So if you ladies saw something that you feel is important to talk about, please let me know. Jump in.
We'll be lucky if we get out of here without discussing flat rate. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I know. Try to avoid the whole flat rate. All right. Can you not?
Oh, look at, wait, someone's watching this with their 8-year-old daughter.
Oh, and says
yes.
you gals are awesome.
We're gonna recruit you.
You need to take this show on the road, ladies. That's what we should be doing. Let's see. All right, Audra, this is to you. Do you see most young ladies more interested in automotive or trucks?
automotive. But I from my career days, I see a lot of sports cars and a lot of fast cars and, you know, supercars. The kids are interested in that. But I don't deal with trucks.
Okay.
So the people who are coming into my space are typically, majority of them are definitely automotive.
Okay. How about trucks in general? We don't really have anybody representing the diesel side of things. I've been following women in trucking a lot, and it seems like they're just crushing it. I mean, and I know the diesel industry, they're doing an awesome job at recruiting entry-level technicians. So kind of let's talk about trucks for a second, just because I think we'd be remiss if we didn't. What are you all seeing in the diesel trucking world?
I stay far away. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have any experience there, but I would be interested to know what you saw on in terms of recruiting. What are they doing so well?
So they pay more.
Ah, there you go. The money. It's all about the money.
Right. Yeah. They tend right now, they're doing a really good job of recruiting, and they tend to pay more. But they also don't have as many high school or post-secondary programs either, right? So they have a much more limited pool to pull from than the automotive or even the collision side, if that makes sense.
Then that's very, very small.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so Ed wants to know, are we seeing women of minority ethnicity or race coming into the automotive industry? I think that's a really good question.
Women is women.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Are we seeing a little bit more diversity with women?
Well, the people that I've been mentoring, I have one young lady who's is Korean. I have one from Venezuela, and another one, well, two from Venezuela, and one is from Guyana. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's diversity, right? Yeah, different ethnicities, different races, absolutely.
They all speak English.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, that's definitely diverse backgrounds. Yeah. So that's a good thing, right? Again, back to that inclusion and that diversity. And Cheryl, you know, I mean, you speak about this all the time. The diversity is key to our business.
Yeah.
I wonder if that matters where you're located. Sorry about that.
Cheryl, you want to speak?
That's okay. That's okay. I think it does matter where you're located, right? Some of the areas in the country that are more rural, I can never say that word, rural,
yeah.
right? They're probably not going to have as much diversity, but looking at the US Bureau of Labor of Statistics, when you look at all of automotive, it's 23.6% women. We don't have a lot of great data on the breakdown, but we know overall it's 23.6%. I think it's 10% for women in service. But when we look at race and ethnicity, the numbers are quite a bit lower for Black and African-American women. They're also lower for Hispanic, Latino overall, and very low for women and the Asian population as well. So we don't have a lot of diversity for race and ethnicity for female. That's another area of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a strategic for Automotive Surface Councils of California, which is a association of independent shops in California. And the kind of number one thing has been to, first of all, start talking about it and start working on it and consider it when you're doing your marketing, when you're doing your messaging, but also really trying to proactively promote young people and people of color into committees, leadership groups, into chapter leadership, and that has been hugely successful. And so I think it's a concerted effort just on all parts to diversify our industry in all of these different ways. Cheryl, I really appreciate your perspective on this and that you're dedicated to working on this particular issue.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and look at what Carrie Wise and team are doing with WOCAN, Women of Color Automotive Network. I think to your point, Carolyn, what you were saying about marketing and advertising, people need to see themselves in the advertising that's out there. And if they don't, they just think it's not for me. So really important.
Okay, I'm looking at the other questions. I feel like we've covered a lot. Does anybody else have any, did you see anything in chat that popped up?
Oh, there was a lot.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot. Jeff's
Anybody wanna
comments
tackle?
about diversity groups, you'd be amazed at the talent that's overlooked. I think that's true. There is so much talent that is overlooked and underestimated. So that's a great place to look. I don't know, are there any other professional associations for technicians out there? I heard Women in Auto Care, is it? What else is out there?
There's a bunch of different forums that people participate in. For the aftermarket shop owners, there is ASA, Automotive Service Association, ASCCA is in California, IGO North Carolina, IGO NC, several East Coast organizations, AAPA. I mean, there's just a lot of professional groups. And I think that for folks that are looking to connect with other communities, I would recommend going to your community college or your technical program and asking them for what is going on locally, because that's typically where those associations go to either support and do scholarships, but also recruit technicians. So that's a great way to sort of find out who's in your area and then connect with those communities. The industry associations have gone through the same kind of diminishing social capital as like all industry associations have gone through. And so as our business gets harder and harder, there becomes more and more need for us to band together and, have strength in numbers. And so there is a renaissance, I think, going on with a lot of these organizations where there's a turnover as far as the older generation is getting out of the way, the younger generation is coming in. There's a lot of new ideas. There's a lot of new young shop owners. And that energy is getting, breathed into a lot of these associations anew, while also not kind of throwing away all of the insight and the learning. We had a conversation at ASCCA, which is that we've forgotten more than we've learned. Like, we discovered all of this documentation that had basically answered all of these questions that we had in the past. We're like, someone just needs to go back and read it all. So tapping into all the different insights and expertise in the organization, or excuse me, in the industry, is a challenge we have, especially as we go forward, because there's so much that we've learned, and there's a lot of people who have been around, which I think is kind of what we were getting at the beginning of the forum, as far as the people who've come before us and that each of us got to learn from, and not just saying that, just because they were older or potentially they were male, that they were somehow not valuable. I mean, everyone who's been as part of this industry has contributed to it. And so how do we kind of collaborate, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I like that point about banding together. So important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, coming back to kind of the mentoring piece, and we all bring value, and especially for women, if we can kind of relate to each other and discuss, what worked, what didn't work, what we could do differently. I think that's really important, like the discussion tonight. So I'm amazed by all of you. I'm looking, hold on, there's a couple of questions coming in. I think we've hit upon all of them though. So I don't know. Does anybody else have any other comments or things you'd like to address? No? All right. Well then, Sarah, do we just take it away with more music and we thank everybody?
I don't have any closing music, but I do appreciate everyone joining us tonight.
I think we need like a dance off now or something.
Well, you're welcome to sing, Christen.
Oh, no. No, I'm gonna go have a cocktail now.
There you go, Carolyn.
Party cocktails. Well, thank you for having us, and thank you for all the great comments in the chat. Very engaged participants. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ladies. This has been
Thank you.
awesome. And let's stay in touch too, you know, because this is a network that's important.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you. Have a good night. Enjoy.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.